Join me next year at Exosphere, the alternative education platform where unique learning experiences cultivate the discipline, knowledge, and curiosity for building new enterprises that solve real problems. Its second boot camp, designed to accommodate people from all stages of life with a diversity of experience and ideas, happens from March to June 2014 in Santiago, Chile. I'll be there as a full-time fellow, as will a whole faculty and residents with experience in coding, design, development, marketing, and emerging technology to help you develop your business and yourself. You can find more details and apply at exosphe.re until January 15th. Season 4 of Notebook on Cities and Culture is brought to you by Daniel Murphy, Polar Inertia, a journal of nomadic and popular culture, online at polarinertia.com, and Medivate, a community and set of tools to help you build the kind of meditation practice you'd like to have, online at medivate.com. Anybody who reads your blog would get the sense that Copenhagen has gone mad for cutting down trees. Is that true?
Yes.
Just straight yes, they have?
I think they're not, it's just not a priority. It seems like there's not one person in charge of the well-being of the green stuff in Copenhagen, to speak, the parks. And of course there's someone looking after them, but there's not a political... It's not a tree policy, a tree plan in place, so it's like the Wild West. I say it's like the Wild West here.
It is Notebook on Cities and Culture. I'm Colin Marshall, sitting down in Nørrebro. Sitting down in Nørrebro.
Yes.
With Sandra Høj. She is the blogger behind a blog called Classic Copenhagen, and it's one that I use to get acquainted with the city before coming here, and I assume a lot of people do as well. And if you've read it lately, you will notice that she's posted quite a bit about trees and about what the city has done wrong with them. But quite frankly, I've walked around and it seems like this really is, by the standards of what I've seen, a very green city. According to your blog, though, it could be doing a lot better, could it not?
There are many, many problems. I mean, if you... I now say to people that if you want to see Copenhagen trees, you go on Google Street View, because they were here 3 years ago. And
what happened 3 years ago?
Well, we had the trees still. In that period of time, we lost so many trees, hundreds and hundreds of trees, and they were taken away for it was healthy trees, cut down. Sometimes it's like, let's start over so they're all the same height, or let's make a new square that's all asphalt, let's take away 100 trees, or a real estate developer.
Now, for those who don't know, is this a new government making these choices, or what's responsible for the change?
But it's not really a change, it's just something I noticed, and once I started noticing, it became clear. So it's probably been happening for a lot longer, but I noticed this, just from looking at Google Street View. But even people who noticed this for longer tell me it's been going on for a long time, and we're at the end now. There's not much more they can take, but it's really bad, especially in Nørrebro. We have very, very little green per citizen compared to the rest of the places in Copenhagen.
So you've always lived here, as you told me before we started recording, but someone who's lived here 70 years says, yes, this has been a long process of tree removal here in Copenhagen.
I started this tree group, where people can alert us to, now they're going to remove this, now they're going to remove that, and then we start talking together, and one was saying, check out any movie that was recorded in Copenhagen in the 70s, and you were like, you wouldn't recognize the city because there was so many green patches and there were just like trees all over the place. Right now we're actually losing, Denmark lost a fourth of all the road trees because of soil damages, because the government is, whoever is in charge is soiling the streets, and then the trees die, because they get soil damage and they won't bloom, and eventually they'll just succumb. And this is happening right now, and I can show you afterwards a couple of trees that never came around for summer.
The trees that survive here, they do make subjects for you, for your photographs on your blog, and as does street art. What else always draws your eye when you're walking, or more likely cycling the streets of Copenhagen?
It's the small things. For me, it's always the small things. You know, I like the street art. There's not so much of it always, but I don't know. It's like then I see a house with some weird little details, or it's the colors. Or it's hard to explain. I just like to discover beauty. It's like a treasure hunt for me, or safari maybe.
When did you begin really photographing regularly here on the streets of Copenhagen?
I guess. Well, it came with the blog. I guess it grew with the blog. Everything has happened around this blog.
Why did you begin it? And when and why did you decide to start covering your city on the internet in English as well?
Well, I can tell you why. It was probably not the popular explanation, but I can tell you it's because of this whole Muhammad crisis. I don't know if you heard about it.
So that was several years ago now, so people probably need reminding. I think a lot of Americans, they think of Denmark now and they mainly think of that. They're like, oh yeah, isn't that where they had all that trouble with the caricatures, the cartoons, and the Islam and all that danger? So how do you remember that sequence of events?
Well, I wanted to write a blog, but I didn't quite know the subject. And I left Denmark for a while, and I got homesick. And when I came home, it sort of just overnight, it was like, of course, I'm going to write about Copenhagen. And I grew so frustrated with this fabricated image of Danes as this pastry eating, oblivious. It was in CNN. And this old guy, up until that point, somehow I just always believed what he was saying. And then I saw him in my own city, feeding people lies about who we were and what we were. They were making this image. They went to this posh place where people were ice skating, and then they presented it like, this is what we're all like. And we don't understand other people's culture, and we all eat pastries, and we all live in a fairy tale land. And it's like,
you were described as insular. You think they said the Danes are turned inward.
Yes, like idiots living in a fairy tale. Because seriously,
living in a Hans Christian Andersen tale.
Yes, it was so stupid. And then the images just sold the whole story. And I was afterwards like, well, now I have to question everything you ever told me, guys, because that's bullshit. Yeah. Sorry, my language, but and then
you can say what you like. I think it's true in this. It's worth saying in this case, right? That, and I thought, okay. And then Oprah, not so long after, came here, and she talked to some very well-off architect women who also were this image of blonde. And they said, oh, this is what Danes live, we were so privileged here. And they went to this apartment. I've never seen anything like it. And it was just like this glass, this architect's dream or something. It's like, what the hell is this? And they had this nice conversation in this posh place. And again, it was like, this is what Copenhagen, this is what Denmark is like. And I felt we were not being represented. And I wanted I just wanted to put out my, a little bit more nuanced view of who we were. Right. Yeah. It's easy to get that image of Denmark, and I think a lot of times internationally, the rest of the world, they conflate all of Scandinavia together. They think of it as one big place where, yes, it's pastries and blonde people and a lot of money, a lot of taxes, but a lot of very nice architecture and wood and whatnot. But what are the main things that you think this image doesn't capture about Denmark and moreover Copenhagen? What are some things you really would want people to know most, or what are the things you wanted people to know most when you started this blog and wanted to go against this global idea of Denmark?
Well, I just wanted. I described the good, the bad, and the ugly, yes. And I didn't want to hide. I had this Australian guy write to me one time, and he said he really enjoyed that I described it warts and all. Yes. Apparently that's an expression, but it's. I don't know. I just wanted to, put it out there that we're just, the same as you probably, we just have a different hair color or whatever, but
in my case, the same hair color.
Yes, that's true. But you live in Nørrebro, and we're not against foreigners, but my point of view with the cartoons is like, it's a cartoon, and we have. we have caricatures here for everything, and we mock ourselves, we mock the Queen, we mock the politicians, and you should be allowed to make a drawing, I think, without being decapitated.
This idea of mocking everything now, on your blog, you do criticize the things you think need criticizing about the government or the city or the country. But is that a common Danish feeling that we freely criticize anything we see that we think is wrong?
Well, I say we nag. Our way of showing concern is nagging, and it can get really annoying at times. And nobody wants to listen to someone nag the whole time. Mm-hmm. So, but we have freedom of speech, and we do. What is
the nagging about? Are there themes to the nagging? I guess is what I want to ask.
No, we nag about everything. Really? Yeah. If it upsets us, people. If you go on Twitter and all the people I follow, they will nag about the latest update for some Apple device. I don't know.
The internet has a lot of complaints from everybody, but I wonder what sense you have of, other than say cutting down fewer trees or planting more. What do you feel like? What expectations do you feel like you have from a place like Copenhagen?
Well, I think it would be nice if it was the infrastructure was adjusted somewhat more towards bikes, and I would like the air to be cleaner here. We have especially around the area where I live, it's like we're told not to open our windows in the daytime because the exhaust...
What's going on? Oh, the cars?
It's the cars, yeah. The exhaust fumes are so high, and also the children living around the lakes, or have kindergartens and stuff. It's like, please don't go out in the daytime because the levels are above EU, European Union standards. So I would like them to be more to address that more, so the air would be nicer. And then I think there should be. It's too much about money now. It's not about the quality of life. It's about money. It's not nice.
I see. It seems like, from when I hear Danes talk about the economic system here, that the taxes are high enough that it would be hard to make it about money. It's hard to get rich here in Denmark. Is it not? Is that true?
Yes, I think it's not about being rich. For a lot of people, it's just about being able to pay the rent and be able to go to the doctor and have some nice food. And some people get greedy, but most people I see just want, they just want to have a decent life.
This is maybe one of those other qualities of the world's perception of Denmark to correct, because I'm pretty sure, at least in America, everybody thinks in Denmark people automatically have all those things. Like there's nobody who lacks the basics in life. Is that not true?
Well, there's a poverty coming now. It's people get homeless, students sleep in tents.
This is a new thing.
This is a fairly recent thing. I think in the last the government before this one had 10 years of not, making some wrong choices, and you probably have the same over there.
Yes.
And this government has decided that it was supposed to be better, but they have decided to let the weak pay the bill and not adjust the banks, and then it's not going the right way, and you have a lot of people who are getting kicked out of their houses, and you don't have enough cheap places to live. I mean, there's just a lot of frustration going, and it's not so good right now.
Would you call it just the same thing that's been happening the world over, this sort of economic crisis that's hit everybody, but Denmark has not handled it in a way you think is optimal?
Well, I'm not a specialist, so I don't...
How do people talk about it, though?
I don't know how to describe this best to you, or even pinpoint the exact problem. But I just see that there's a large group of people whose needs are not tended to, and it's creating an underclass, and it's going in the wrong direction. That's all.
Now, you mentioned before you started the blog, Classic Copenhagen, you spent some time outside the city. Where was it you were during that time? How long were you away in this time that made you homesick for the city?
I went to Amsterdam for about a year. Yeah.
Is that? I mean, it seems like it's not very far away in the grand scheme, but culturally, how different is Amsterdam?
sometimes I think we're all Europeans. Of course, there are the little differences, but I don't know. I don't tend so much to separate people that way. I think once we sit down and talk together and have a cup of coffee, we're pretty much the same, you know.
I see. But then the differences, what differences there are, can be pretty interesting, right? If you not that they're bad differences, but there's certain things that we stand to learn from each other. Correct?
Well, you know, from the bicycle infrastructure perspective, we can learn a lot from Amsterdam. Well, in many regards, but, you know, people-wise, I don't know. I think Copenhagen is a sexy city, and I don't think Amsterdam is a sexy city. Amsterdam is cozy, you know.
What's the difference in the qualities that make that?
It's mellow and laid back and relaxed to the point of being, you know, numbing in a way, but it's beautiful, and it's just a place where your shoulders will fall down and you're like, that's nice. But Copenhagen is, I don't know, I like Copenhagen.
I want to know more about the difference, you know, because this seems like a mellow place as well, at least by the standards of places I've been. But do you think that maybe there's more? You feel more ambition around you than in Amsterdam? Does that make sense?
Yes. I don't know exactly. I never thought about it. What separates us?
The question to me is also the question of what unites two cities like Amsterdam and Copenhagen is also fascinating to me, because this is maybe just another angle of wanting to counter the idea that all Scandinavian cities are the same, that places outside of Scandinavia might have. But I want to get an idea from you of, you know, you mentioned, say, that they could do better with the bicycle infrastructure there in Amsterdam. And coming here, you know, it's hard to believe any city could have better bicycle infrastructure than Copenhagen does, because I've never, you know, this is held up as the place where it's the best, especially if American cyclists talk about it like, you've got to go to Copenhagen, cycle there, everything's perfect. But you would say there are improvements to be made.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, but well, two things are the space allocated for bicycles in Amsterdam, but if the whole system is just geared towards, you know, we adjust the pace, the bicycles, you know, you're allowed to drive a lot faster in Copenhagen. It creates much more dangerous situations, and also the cars have much more space. So you have a lot of bicyclists on not enough space, you know.
It's the issue of parking for bicycles is fascinating to me, because in Los Angeles I bike around, that's how I get around, but a lot of what has harmed that city in the last 60 years, I would say, is the amount of car parking that has been built, because it makes the city less interesting when there's just vast parking lot after vast parking lot, or giant car parking structures above ground. They take up so much space. So I imagine there's many conversations about how do we make bike parking in a way that's not obtrusive, or in a way that doesn't take up space. Bikes are smaller, of course, but what do the conversations about bike parking sound like? You know, what are the arguments when people talk about bicycle parking, whether we need more or whether we don't need more?
Well, there's no question that we need a place to put our bikes, but we will put our bikes anyway, because it just looks like a mess if there's no infrastructure ready for it. We'll just put them, you know, where we can. Right. And then people always think it's a large pain in the ass, but it's better than a car, and especially in the streets and in the areas where we live, you see one car take up the space of 10 bicycles, but these bicycles, you know, we have to put them somewhere, so we put them on the sidewalk, which means that elderly and people with baby carriages and stuff, they would have to go into the street. You know, so it's like we're fighting it out. The two weakest of us are fighting it out.
Now, you have this device on your bikes, which intrigues me, and I think it will intrigue any non-European. It's a lock built onto your bike that just makes one of the wheels not turn, so that you can just stop it wherever, and it locks up and it can't roll. How do those work?
You're describing something that's so normal, like it's really exciting. It's really weird.
Because, well, we just chain our bikes to posts, which is illegal here, I guess.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. They don't like that, but we do it anyway, because, you know, it's better to chain the whole body to something than just, right. I mean, the bike body, not mine. But
right, exactly. But bike theft is an important thing to watch out for here. How many bikes have you had stolen?
2 or 3, I think.
Over the span of how long?
I was very careful when I carried my bike upstairs on the second floor for many years. Then I got a heavy grandma bike and that stopped. Then 2 got stolen and I started chaining them up, and then it's fine now. But the log you talk about is more like a horseshoe that you mount to the back below your saddle. Right. There's a horseshoe and then there's a key at the side, and when you stop your bike, you slide it around so it becomes like a handcuff around it goes in the wheel. Do you understand?
I see it. It becomes like parking a car where you just have to stop it, lock it, and there it is. But somebody can pick it up.
You don't have that. I'm really surprised.
We don't have that. At best, we have maybe a U-lock or a chain that we thread through the back wheel and lock to the body. But usually, for me in Los Angeles, 99% of the time, it's find a bike rack or find a stop sign or find a pole and chain it to that. And it's fascinating to me to be here because you can see some examples of what might be in the future in America, because cycling is only just, to say it's only just taking hold is about accurate. Maybe that's better than it's actually doing, but in certain cities cycling is coming a long way. But in your experience in Copenhagen, I mean, as long as you remember, was cycling the main way to get around here?
Yeah, it always has been. Yeah.
So it was just automatic. When you grew up, when you were a kid, you would have bikes. When you grew up, you'd have bikes, and so on and so forth. People just have them.
People just have them. But now we're seeing as decrease, must be the word for it. Children, people are afraid to send out their children now. So there's not so many children in traffic anymore. Yeah, because they get this image of cycling being dangerous, which it is really not, especially in a place like Copenhagen where you're
protected. Imagine dangerous.
Yeah, I know.
Have there been a lot of high-profile accidents recently? Why do they think that?
I can tell you why they think that. It's because there is a scare tactics that's been going on for the past about 10 years where helmets are promoted.
Right, which I'll add this in America. It's normal to wear one. They expect you to. Sometimes it's the law.
But imagine that, like 10 years ago, before that, we all rode around, like old people, young people, children, everybody. Nobody wore a piece of plastic on the head, and we were fine. And the infrastructure was nowhere near as good as it is today. Right. And then there's a large industry that's making a lot of money from selling this plastic foam shit, right. And once they started promoting that, you see it as a dangerous thing, as a contact sport or something. It's like, oh my God, look at all this shit that can happen. And then people withdraw their children from this dangerous activity. So it's I think that's part of the reason why people see it dangerous.
It's fascinating because in America, in many cities that don't have biking, adults will say, wow, I haven't been on a bike since I was a kid. It's thought of as a kid's pursuit to be on a bike. So here, it's, for some people, the reverse. It's for adults because it can be too dangerous for a kid. That's what they think.
We learned from a young age. I feel sorry for the children who are getting transported around, in other ways, because they miss out on this great way of seeing the city, and it's not second nature if you don't start early. Right. And it's such a freedom. I can't describe it. I miss it so much when I don't sit on my bike for a week in a row. If I travel and stuff, it's like, oh, I miss my bike so much.
That to me is also unthinkable. I rent a bike wherever I go. I'm going to rent one here, but tell me, when you're taking photos of Copenhagen, are you on your bike and you just stop when you see something? Are you just taking photos in the course of your life, or do you go out on photo-taking trips? How do you do that?
I do all of it. I do sometimes. I always have the camera with me, and most of the time I have it in my hand, with it strapped around my wrist. And so I take pictures, drive-by shootings, I call them. But I also sometimes I just dedicate a whole day just to get lost in a way. I say I let my bike lead the way. I get on the bike and the bike decides.
Can you still get lost after spending almost your whole life in Copenhagen? Can you get lost here still?
Amazingly, I have so many places to go still. I see there's so many places. It's crazy. And you can go into a backyard and you can spend all day there because look over there and look over there. It's like it's because it's a micro universe that explodes in your face when you really start looking. There's so much to see.
It depends on how you're looking. Then you can focus on the micro rather than the macro, and there's a wealth of detail. It just depends on how you look at it.
I guess, but now I see things First, I just started looking for street art many years ago, and then it evolved, and I started looking at green things, and I started looking at garbage. What's that? I started cleaning up this. I developed this garbage can as well, because all of a sudden I saw garbage everywhere. You know, it's like if you tune in your eye, you can see different things. So now,
what am I looking for today? You can ask yourself: is it garbage? Is it art?
And sometimes I'm just paralyzed by all the advertising. I don't know if you've noticed there's a lot of advertising.
Well, I can't read most of it, so it's a little bit easier for me if I can't. I mean, I see I've been trying to learn what words I can in Danish, but most of these ads I can't read, so it could be anything. The sign.
Exotic to you.
Yes.
Yeah, but for us, it's like all the buses are completely covered. It's like one big advertisement driving around town. There are many of them. There's no surface that's not pimped out by the city, you know. So and it's an overkill, and my concern is that it blinds people, you know, because it's like when you look on the internet, you block that out. Somebody's trying to get my attention. I don't see that. So when you go through life and you start blocking out, you also miss the good things. So I think it's a big concern with all these advertisements that's running amok in Copenhagen.
It's probably the same in America, I'm thinking about. At least here you don't seem to have the 10-story billboards that are huge by the roadside. We have those in America.
They're just trying to get them, but they are saying that they want about 100 5-meter tall displays now. They're trying to launch it now because there's money in advertising, you know. So it's coming.
But the idea is then to avoid the things that make you turn off your own attention, to avoid the things that make you stop noticing. Is that right?
I force myself to see, and if I start blocking out some things, I will miss out. Something is too important, so that's why I see everything, and that's why I make so much noise when I see injustice and something that could be better, or if I feel very protective about Copenhagen, for instance. So if I criticize something, it's the way it's run. It's not the city, right. You know.
Now, you photograph a lot of things on your blog that are, I suppose, we should say green subjects, whether it is the positive or the negative, whether it's cutting down trees or some sort of innovation you see here or elsewhere. I mean, what has been, I'll ask this question positively, you know, what have been the best forms of greenness you see in Copenhagen? What have been I don't know if you think there's innovation going on here, but what to you is something green about this city?
What's green?
I leave it open to interpretation purposely, but
they make these. There are different ways of interpreting that question. It's they change the street lights now. They take away the beautiful old lamps and put up some new beautiful lamps that have a lower, So
purely about energy conservation in that case.
So in that way, it's green,
So that's one sense of green.
The city is getting a lot of praise for thinking green, and I think what people mean is like trying to sort. We started sorting our garbage now, for instance,
So this is like green in a technical way, which is important, and then there's green in. I remember you posting photos of a sort of vertical garden in Paris. And first of all, what is that? Why has it fascinated you? And is there anything comparable in Denmark?
Some of these initiatives that they take is like a greenwashing exercise.
Superficial.
They make, for instance, when they took away about 150 trees in the center of the city. The next week, they put up some weird wooden constructions with some potted plants inside, and it was like a garden on wheels, and it was green anywhere, and everyone could rent it, and it's like that's greenwashing at its worst,
It's not really anything, but it looks like it's something.
Yeah, because then they can say we allotted some money for this, I don't know.
We did this. Look.
Exactly, and let's get some attention there, and the mayor of trees in Copenhagen will stand next to some children with a potted plant in her hand, and she will smile for the photographer, and then she will go home and forget everything about her responsibilities. She's very occupied with bikes, which is nice, but now there's a gross neglect going on in the tree situation. I'm really hoping I can make people understand this so we can save what's left. I don't think Copenhagen is a green city, in that concern.
Depends on where you come from, but since you grew up here, you could say it's less green than it has been in the past?
It's just a new thing for me to notice. But the decline, it's crazy. Well, just from the point I started noticing to now, which is like a year. In this year, you don't know. We stopped so many big trees from being cut down, and so many projects that were supposed to be carried out that we just 100 trees there, 100 trees there. No, it's really a lot actually. I mean, it may look nice to you, but it's just smokescreen, I think.
Now tell me about this vertical garden in Paris. Why has this captivated your attention so much?
Well, I think it's something about. It's like a corporate thing showing responsibility,
So this isn't a public thing. It's a company has put this up.
It's a BHV, I think it's called. It's a Parisian. They have many, they have the men's department, which is where they have the big wall, and they mounted it. I don't know, a year and a half ago or so.
Department store put this up. What part of Paris is it in?
It's by Hotel de Ville. It's by not too far from Notre Dame, and they. It's instead of spamming people with obnoxious advertising, they put up a big gift to the people, and then they just maintain it, and it grows, and it's a beautiful thing. It's really fascinated me. It's just
and in a way, it's a form of advertisement that works better than advertisement because you think better of this company because they put up the garden, right? You're more positive about them.
Well, they just say well, they mean well, and they show it. They put action behind the words. And then this is my concern is like if people would say a lot of nice things and get the press, and then when it comes down to it, you don't see action following,
Now, you certainly love Copenhagen, but also seem to love Paris. I feel like I come here to Copenhagen and think, what can, say, Los Angeles learn from Copenhagen? Do you ask yourself, what can Copenhagen learn from, say, Paris?
Always. Whenever I travel, I think, what can we pick from here and take home, and how can we improve things,
What are the lessons from Paris you think that Copenhagen could learn, or one or two, or anything that seems like, we need that here, that Paris has it?
I think they have much better policy around advertising.
Yes.
Yeah, they have great respect for the citizens in that sense. And if they have construction work going on, they will tidy up the construction. They would have a print of the building outside, and they would make it an experience. So it's like you're not. It's not ugly. It's never ugly in Paris. I wish we could respect Copenhagen a little bit more that way. It's just it doesn't have to be like a flesh wound every time they cut open something. You can show some respect. It's also like a lady who's you tear off her skirt. Don't show Copenhagen that way, please.
It's more dignity.
Yes, please.
You'd like to see a more Parisian concern for aesthetics here. It seems we think of France. Especially in America, we think of France as a place concerned with beauty above all else. Do you think there is a sort of native aesthetic sense in Paris that we can learn from?
In Denmark or
in Paris, that we can learn from anywhere we happen to be, whether we're Americans or Danes?
I don't know exactly what. If you already have these things in place, but I just think that in Paris, it's not just makeup. It's a profound respect for the city and for the people who live there. You don't want to insult people. And it's here we're voters, or we're consumers, or we're not thought of as human beings. That's a big problem. I think that's reflected in the way they run the city.
Now, when you talk to your fellow Copenhageners about the city, what do arguments start about? Do people argue here about bicycles, or do they argue about advertising, or what gets people fired up here when you're talking about what the city should do or what direction things should go?
Yeah, but people don't get fired up here.
They don't.
No.
Well, I mean, fired up by Danish standards.
No, but they said no. I'm this. I'm a walking heart attack compared to most Danes. I'm not really like them. No, they're really, really, really hard to get to do anything. And I said
they'd rather just let things.
Yeah, but you can get away with almost anything because they really don't want to. They don't want to. there's something on the TV tonight. And, and I said the other day, I'm so in the mood to start a revolution. And then someone said, he said, well, can we do it tomorrow? And that's that's sort of
revolution tomorrow, yes.
Another day.
That's fascinating because we talked before recording about some of the political parties that I see advertising now because the elections are coming up. And some of these names, the way they translate in my head, here's the Radical Party, here's the Social Democratic Party, here's the Communist Party. And those seem so strong in my mind because in America politics are pretty mild generally in that people don't really want to look like they are in any sense radical, but the politics are actually milder than they look to me here. Is that correct? People, there's less.
Words, yeah, don't get confused.
So radical does not mean radicale. It doesn't mean radical.
No, because they're really not at all.
And I would imagine communist doesn't mean communist like I think of it.
You have a party who calls themselves left, but they're really right. You can't really. It's misleading, and also you cannot trust what they say because they'll do something else once they get in power anyway. So it's just words.
It's the nature of politics in any country, I suppose. There's a lot of that. But Paris, Amsterdam. Where else do you like to go throughout Europe, or what are some of the cities you enjoy visiting when you're not in Copenhagen?
Well, I visited Berlin in February, and that was when there was snow. And then I realized that that's when I saw that they had huge trees, and then and people were transporting their children from kindergarten and school and stuff, and what do you call them, sleds? Sleighs.
We say wagons, I think, in America.
Or it's on a string because it was the snow.
Oh, I see. So they're on runners, like they slide on top of the snow.
Yeah.
I think sled.
Okay, so that's it was just so cozy. It was all white, and they would just throw out so you wouldn't slip and fall. They would throw out some sand and stuff, and I thought we can learn that from Berlin. When I came home, I thought that's one thing I would like to bring to Copenhagen. So I don't know, but I don't know Berlin so well.
We don't have snow at all in Los Angeles, let alone parents pulling sleds with kids.
Oversalting, and you should be really happy about that.
What are the problems of salting here? You've written about the salting that goes on and what it damages, and I guess they salt to melt the snow, or why do they do it, and what does it cause?
They throw it out in big machines to make, so everything turns into slush immediately, and it's to make traffic safe. But for one thing, it seeps into the groundwater, and it destroys the asphalt. It makes it crack. It destroys your footwear. It corrodes the sewer system. It corrodes the cars, the bikes. It ruins your dog paws. It's bad for everyone. It's really, really. It's like wetting your pants. Yeah, so sure you don't fall today, but it's gonna stay in the soil for years.
We think of in America, certain states get a lot of snow, and you don't want to buy a car from that state because it'll be rusted because of the salt. Same thing? Same
thing. And imagine what it does to your bike. It's really not good. Yeah.
What seasons are your favorite to photograph here in Copenhagen? I would imagine all 4 seasons are quite different here. This is the only season I've seen so far in Copenhagen. But what tends to bring out the most interesting things in this city? What type of weather or season or environment?
Well, it's nice when there's daylight. I operate best in daylight, and I also like to sleep late. So sometimes there's not so much time to operate in, But it's at the worst point. I call this the dungeon. We're entering the dungeon now because it will get dark around 4:00, and then that's it. So I like the long hours.
I flew into Copenhagen the other day, like 4:00, 4:30, and it was almost as dark as midnight where I come from. When I got here, I was like, it really is dark here. It's tough for a photographer. I can understand why. But for those who are really photography geeks listening, and I'm sure there are more than a few, what have been your cameras of choice? What's been your gear, as we say?
I just have one. It's my little.
Only used one?
Yeah, it's a compact in a way, but it's larger. It's called a Canon Power Shot. It's a G. First I had a G9, and then I waited and I got a G12, and that collapsed, and I bought a new one. Used because I like the combination of the macro function, and the flip screen, and they don't do the flip screen anymore.
Oh, they gave that up.
Yeah, and the really nice thing about the flip screen is that you can obviously you can hit some really interesting angles. Yeah,
it seems like. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I know for a fact is that Copenhagen is the 5th most expensive city in the entire world, and certainly a lot of the prices do seem on the high side here. It's got to be expensive to buy cameras here in Copenhagen. I mean, what do you do? Do you have to buy them on the internet? Or what's the strategy for a pursuit that is as expensive as buying a camera here? How do you handle that in a place this expensive?
Well, it's a one-time investment, at least for, and then you have a camera for 3 years, and as much as I use it, I take sometimes 200 pictures a day, on the good days. So for me, it's not expensive.
It's good that we're in the days of digital now. You don't have to buy film every.
It would never work with the analog. I used to do that when I had this portrait studio. We did the analog. Oh, it's so expensive. Yeah, that's only for people who can afford it now.
How far back does your experience with photography go? I mean, how long have you been working with taking pictures of any kind?
Well, it's getting more and more and more. It's really nice, but I guess I don't know. 10 years? Is it 10 years? I don't even know. I stopped counting.
No, I see. But you're doing more than ever now. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. And I at one point I was taking pictures of people, but I don't really. Well, if they ask me,
right,
I like it, but I would never go up on the street and ask if I could take someone's picture. I'm way too shy for that.
Right. That's difficult. I mean, I imagine from what I've been told about Danish culture by Danes, it's not. People are maybe not always welcoming being photographed here. Is that true?
I don't know, because I don't take pictures of people, so I don't know how they would react, but I wouldn't like it. I mean,
yeah, that sense of not wanting to ask, though. I mean, that seems to. Does that come from this idea that maybe they won't want to be, and I'd rather not bother them?
That's just the whole interaction was. I don't know. I get uncomfortable. Yeah.
It's a lesson. I mean, I have not taken as many photographs as you have, but for example, I've had to take a bunch for a book on Los Angeles I'm working on, and for a while I've been using the rule: if I can take a picture, if I can include a person in my picture, at a distance or not facing the camera, so I don't have to ask them, then I will, because it adds that interest. And sometimes in Los Angeles you have to wait a little while before a person comes by, and not a car. But tell me, what have been some of the, not necessarily rules, but guidelines you've worked with in your experience, ideas that have come to mind, like maybe I should take pictures this way or that way, or this works better than that. What's been a lesson you've learned in taking pictures of your city?
I just go close. When I take a picture of something, I'm always like, I just do one more closer.
That's a good point, though, because we're tempted to stand far away and get it all in the picture, but go close. You found that works better.
Yeah, definitely. And also I like to focus on something in the front and let the rest be a blur. And sometimes I will stand and I will make my picture, but I will not pull the trigger until someone walks in and I get the legs,
Yes,
and sometimes I'm really lucky, it's like gold when you have the right person walking by, it's just catch the right movement.
I've done that leg thing too. I'm glad a photographer more experienced than me also does that. Wait for the legs to pass through the shot. While traveling, haven't taken many pictures, but here I find in Copenhagen, I've brought my iPhone out anyway and taken picture after picture after picture. Do you think this is a particularly photographable city? I mean, you'll naturally have a bias because you take photographs here all the time, but it seems like there's just more here to be photographed. I don't know what to make of that feeling, but do you think that might be true?
Yeah, I think, but the interesting thing is, the more you look, I mean, I lived here my whole life and I still see things every day. It's like, what? where did you come from? And it's just like a layer, and I describe it this way. I think it's like it decides when it wants to appear for you, to you. So it will come at its own pace. Of course, you would have to look for it, but you can look as much as you want. If it's not ready to be shown, you won't see it. I know it's like an interaction with you in the city, and you can walk by the same place 5 times, and maybe you have to hit it from a different angle. So I like to take also different ways home sometimes, and mix it up a little bit.
And you've noticed new things here over time, and a lot of trees have been pulled up as well, so that's a change in the environment. But what else has changed about Copenhagen since you've been growing up here? What are the main things you would say look different or feel different about the city since you were a kid here?
Definitely, I think there's too much advertisement in the.
That's the main change. More advertisement.
Because the public space have become. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I want children to grow up in the Copenhagen that I saw, because I think in many ways it was more respectful to them.
It didn't intrude on them.
No, but it's a beautiful city, and it's not. I don't want it to sound like everything is wrong here, because that's not how it is. But it's just it's like you see someone you care being mistreated, and then you want to correct that. That's all.
Tell us more about the Copenhagen you grew up in. I mean, other than the lack of advertising, what else do you remember? What are your best memories of this city when you were growing up?
But I don't know if I never. It was just a place I lived. It's not like a back garden that I used to love, and I see it different now than I used to. So it's in a way I almost don't recognize it. Sometimes I would go by where I lived when I was a child, and it's like, what's this place? So I'm not emotionally connected to places that I grew up, really. It's something that's grown on me later. I don't know.
Now, I mentioned before we were recording that I took a walk just around yesterday, and I ended up walking miles and miles down into the pronunciation of the place. Amager.
Shit Island.
Yes. Well, maybe tell the story about why they call it that, so people don't think you're just saying it's bad.
It's also an endearing term, but it was where they used to transport all the toilets out. They would pick up the buckets from people's houses, and they would empty it out there. So it's actually built on people's feces, so that's why they call it. And also there's a lot of the trash. What do you call that? Where they dump the dumpster.
Just like the place where you put like just a dump. We would say dump.
That's also where you burn the garbage and stuff, So they would transport all the garbage there. So it was just called Lorteøen, the shit island.
That's the image that it had, is a place where this is where the garbage goes. This is where the waste goes. Yeah. I see. Because I was walking around and it was nice.
It's a cool place. It's a nice place. Yeah.
It's a cool place. And I went on for miles. I kept walking, and I had to turn around eventually because I was like, I'm going to be walking all night if I keep going. And
at the airport eventually.
Eventually I get back to where I came from on the metro. But everybody says Copenhagen is so small, but I realize there are parts that are very large as well. And you were mentioning to me this is the frontier of the gentrification, I suppose. This is where it hasn't quite happened yet. And there's lots of places like that in American cities. They talk about you want to move where the gentrification hasn't fully come. So I mean, has that? What is that? What does that gentrification cause? What does it bring, or what does it take away when it reaches a place in Copenhagen? What do you notice about that?
Ooh, it's a bad thing. It takes away the creativity and the vibe and
by making it too expensive.
Well,
because it's already expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive already. But you see, this is actually a good street, and what we're sitting right now is one of the remaining. But that's because we still have a lot of inexpensive apartments right around here.
What street is this, by the way? I'm trying to learn the streets. One more time.
Blågårdsgade.
Blågårdsgade. I'm learning the Danish vowels very slowly. But what makes a good street in this neighborhood?
And they should just be, it's the same thing all over the world. We're not really different that way. There's just should be a place you could buy the vegetables. And, you have to be careful not put in too many art galleries and hairdressers and cafe latte place.
You don't want all of the same thing.
You have this nasty juice chain, and you have this, the chain stores move in, and the rent goes up, and it pushes out all the little, the people who made it interesting. Well, it's the same pattern everywhere. The people who make the area interesting attracts the chain stores, and the chain stores can pay more, and they just push out all the interesting little stuff.
I notice in Copenhagen, what I've seen so far is there may be chain stores, but I don't recognize them as chain stores yet because they're not international chains. Typically, Danish.
Yeah.
What are the Danish chain stores? What are the kind of Danish chain stores you watch out for, and you think, this neighborhood is in trouble now?
Joe and the Juice.
What's it called?
Joe and the Juice. We have one. It's a nasty one on the corner.
The juice isn't very good.
Well, it's not even about that. It's just this. It's like this, this obnoxious guy who comes into this cozy, the kitchen party, and just flashes around his money and cranks up the stereo, and it just ruins everything. And there's this, if you're clever about it, you move into a neighborhood and you become a part of it. You respect what's there. You don't push your own agenda, and you respect. I can't explain this. Joe and the Juice. I will show you. It's really, really nasty. And
I take it you don't buy juice there.
I would never.
It's interesting because in America we have a lot of chains, of course, and in America many of our chains are international. So when a neighborhood is gentrifying, often you see a Starbucks coffee open up, which is not. There's no Starbucks here. It seems like that's not.
No, they haven't really moved in, but we have Barresso and we have Rico. Yeah.
I was at Barresso yesterday, and I enjoyed a cappuccino there, but I like this one better that we had on the street.
They make really good coffee here.
But when a Starbucks shows up in a neighborhood, there is a sense of oh no, this means that a better place won't be serving coffee, or maybe they'll crowd out better coffee places. But it also means this is a sense that the neighborhood is maybe safer. Maybe this neighborhood will be more comfortable now. So it's a double-edged sword when we get a Starbucks. We both want to see them enter a neighborhood and don't want to see them. I take it it's not the same with this juice place. It's just a negative thing to you to see this juice.
Yeah, it's a taggy, loud, stupid place. It's we don't need a juice place. Come on, and they take away stuff we need. They took away the post office.
Oh, really?
Because they're cutting down on the post office all the time. So we have to go really far to hit a post office now. So instead of this place for the community where we would meet each other and say hi and collect our packages, there we get this frozen yogurt shit place with neon-colored plastic benches outside, and it's oh my God, it's like that.
We come back again to the subject of aesthetic sense. These chain stores do not have a good aesthetic sense, you would say.
Most of them, no.
I see.
They want to be instantly recognizable, and they have succeeded in that, yeah.
See, with the Starbucks in America, they're neither pleasing nor displeasing. They're just very mild. You almost don't notice them. But what's that?
At least, that's nice. Well,
I suppose so. But then there's other chains we have that are just the same thing, oh God, look at that.
Here we go. Here goes the neighborhood, yeah.
Now, is there a sense in Copenhagen that you may have these waves of gentrification, but things eventually even out, or are there neighborhoods that people think become ruined because of the changes? Do you get the distinction that I'm drawing there? Do neighborhoods retain their character, or do they change forever?
Well, it's hard for a neighborhood to retain the character when you push out the people who made it, and so one of the things that they did wrong, I think, was that all the affordable apartments that were for rent, so students and young families could move in, they made it possible for people to buy it really cheap and turn it into condos. And then they went up 100 times, so now you have to indebt yourself forever to get this tiny apartment. So it's become for not as much upper class, but you need a certain security, an income to, so it becomes, I don't know. I stick my tongue out now. You can't see that on the radio. No, you cannot retain the character when you don't have the. I compare a city to a coral reef, and you gotta leave a little wild and untouched, and you gotta really be respectful of whatever evolves. And if people start using public space, for instance, they don't go in and try to control how they move around there. For instance, we have the bridge, Queen Louise's Bridge. You've probably passed it. Up here, it was just a bridge, and then people started hanging out on it because the sun goes there in the evening, sunset, and then they made the sidewalk. They brought it back to the really white as it was in the 1800th century or something, and put out a lot of benches, which was nice, and more people came there, and then the city just became like this grown up who wanted to be at the party,
I see.
Yeah, and they wanted to control it, and they started renting out the space to advertisers, and they, and they closed it off and make exhibitions on it, and it's just like, oh, they took away all the fun because they meddled too much, It's just like, it was this fragile thing where people started using it on their own, and it's really something you should not mess with. So, yeah.
Both literally and metaphorically, then you have to let the green shoots, the plants grow up through the cracks. That's you've written about that literally on your blog, that you don't like to see the flamethrowers burning away what they think of as weeds. But there's a metaphor there too, like you want the natural processes to take over a bit from the engineered processes, right?
But that's where you get the creativity and the life, It's if you try to control everything and put it into boxes, you suffocate what could happen, It's very, very important that you hands-off approach sometimes, not try to monetize everything.
Right. But it's hard when a politician or a bureaucrat needs to demonstrate, look, I did something. Look, I'm watching. My hand is on this. Don't worry. They have to show that they're active, right?
Yeah. And then they ruin it.
What areas of Copenhagen have become more exciting to you to explore recently? When you look at a map or decide where do I want to go today, where seems like the most exciting place for you to see, or a place you want to? Where are the places you want to know more about right now?
I like to go further out on Nørrebro. Just ride my bike, further. Before. I lived here for many years now, but before I used to stay in the area where I lived and go inwards towards, and towards the other bridge areas. But now I like to go out towards Northwest, because that's also not gentrified yet. So you'll see more street art and more, people hanging weird stuff out of the windows. I like that. Traces of life.
Street art, things hanging in the windows, weeds growing up in the cracks. What else are signs you might be in an interesting neighborhood to you? What do you see and think, that's a clue that this is a place worth exploring more?
Yeah, if people enjoy being there, if you can tell it's a place that people like to live, it shows, and that it creates a good atmosphere, and it's if they put out a little piece of furniture in front of the house, a little potted plant, and if they leave a trace, I like traces of people more than I like people, actually.
Traces more than the individuals. But tell me, when you hear back from people, when you're writing, when you're posting on your blog, when you hear back from people, do you hear from mostly Danes or people who have lived in Denmark, or is it what type of people when they write to you, when they comment? Where are they coming from?
Oh, you mean my readers? Well, I was quite surprised that more than half of them actually live in Copenhagen. And I started writing in English because I thought it would be, because why would they want to read about something they already know?
But you were writing for outsiders, what you thought.
Yeah, and then I was very surprised to learn that half of my readers are actually from Copenhagen, and they enjoy seeing their own city through my eyes. That was a big surprise to me. But then I also get some really nice letters sometimes from people all over the world who either visited here and it still means a lot to them, or they used to live here and they now live in another country, and people who worked here for a while and studied here. That was one. Sometimes, because I have this very traumatic feeling about Christmas and New Year's, and I just hate this time so much. Oh, God.
It sounds like, from what you've written on Classic Copenhagen, you have the same problem here as we have in America, which is, people say this every year in America, and it's become a cliche. They say, the Christmas advertisements, the Christmas decorations are out earlier this year, out before Thanksgiving. You know, they said next year it'll be October. I don't know if they're actually getting earlier, but people say it every year in America. Same thing here.
Totally. We had Santa Claus in September. Hey, beat that.
that I haven't seen even in the States, where Christmas is a major thing.
No, they were handing out newspapers, but still, I mean, come on. And no, that was what I was about to say with the Christmas thing, is that someone wrote me and said that, you know, it helps me to know that I'm not alone with that feeling. So it's really nice to connect with people. I like the feedback. It's not so often it happens, but I really enjoy to hear from people.
Does it ever happen that your readers teach you something about Copenhagen, or you learn something about the city or a way to approach it that you haven't thought about before from people who read your blog? I don't know if they ever suggest and they say, could you go here, tell me about this place, or hey, have you ever considered writing about this element, photographing this part of Copenhagen? But do they ever surprise you in that way?
No, because that's really funny. So, someone wrote that a particular spot I'd taken a picture of. I think it was around the magnolia tree, and she was like, oh, and I saw this picture, reminded me so much. I know exactly where this is, and I passed there every day on my way to school. And I promised myself that I wanted to make a post and ask people if they have a special place, and I would go out and I would see it with my eyes, and I would post it. So you know, you can sort of like I would be the little puppet, you know. For
just tell me where to go, right?
Jesus, exactly.
And was there less response to that than you thought, or was?
I haven't. You know, you just reminded me that I had to do it. Yeah, it's not.
You haven't tried much of it yet. That's just your idea. Okay.
Yeah, I want to do it, but I can go home and do it now, actually. So it's just.
I think people would respond to that. That sounds like something they would want to do. And for those who are outsiders or who consider coming to Copenhagen, I mean, what's something that you would like to teach them in your blogging about Copenhagen, or inform them about that you don't think they're getting from the information that they normally read or hear or watch about Copenhagen or Denmark? What's something that people don't know that you would really like them to know? What sort of thing do you wish they would know more about before they come here?
It all depends. Sometimes people write me and ask for suggestion. It depends so much on what your expectations are. I mean, if I go someplace, I would really like to go to flea markets, you know. I want to wake up late. I want to have coffee in a nice place. I want to, you know, just do things at my own pace. And I don't want to run around to museums and no.
Right. You don't want to do the usual. You don't want to do a touristy thing.
No, I really don't.
And I take it you would not recommend that type of agenda for a visitor to Copenhagen. Don't do the normal stop at this museum, stop on this street, go to this shopping center.
Well, if they want to do that, that's fine. So I can't really advise anyone to, but you know, you sort of get an idea if you read my blog. It's just, you know, what I think is interesting, and then maybe you'll get inspired.
Finally, what's in those flea markets that's so intriguing?
When I travel or here?
I guess anywhere. If flea markets are always a priority, what do the flea markets tell you about the place you find them in?
Well, it's a treasure hunt. I like treasure hunts. You know, it's sort of like when I take pictures as well. And now it makes even more sense. I also start going there myself and selling stuff a lot. Yeah, also
You're not just a buyer.
No. Now I'm also selling stuff, which is really nice. I like it so much.
I like this idea of flea markets as a key to a place. I'll want to go to a few in Copenhagen because it seems like there, seeing the items people have resold, you understand something about a place and its people. That may be too grand or mystical a thing to say, but do you think it's possible that it really gives you a view you don't have of a people any other way?
Well, it gives you understanding of your own culture in a way. When you go to flea markets and you talk to people, it's like, what's this device? Oh, we used to use that for that. And you start talking with people, and you learn things. You know.
What's something you've learned in that way about Copenhagen, your own city, for your whole life?
Well, yesterday I stopped. That's not even a flea market, but yesterday I stopped to take pictures of a building with some women sticking out of the front. You know, it's like decorated with women doing all kinds of things. And I was fighting the daylight. That's my competition for the next 6 months. Is rushing to make it before the sun goes down.
Since we're getting into the graveyard, yes.
The dungeon. So I was taking pictures of the women, and a man comes up to me, starts telling me about what it is. The house was bought by a foundation that used to make. He was talking, you know. But it was really interesting what he had to say, so I have to go back and take pictures of that. And then he said it was for poor women. and they had a special book that they would have to write down in, I don't know, something. And they would have to write down their skills and whatever in that book. So to give back to the community, this company that sold these books, they made this house for the poor women, and then they made all the virtues of women at that time. So there's actually little women sticking out. I have to show you. It's really nice. I'll put it on the blog probably.
It's something I doubt you would see. I couldn't imagine. It's hard to imagine right now, but it's hard to imagine seeing in any other city but Copenhagen, which is, by the way, where I'm sitting right now, listeners. I've been speaking with Sandra Høj. She is the blogger behind Classic Copenhagen, an English-language blog with plenty of photos, which is an introduction I can certainly recommend to the city if you're planning on coming here. Sandra, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It was very cozy to talk to you.
This has been Notebook on Cities and Culture. I've been Colin Marshall. You can keep up with the cultural creators, internationalists, and observers of the urban scene on the show at colinmarshall.org. Thanks. Special thanks to everyone who backed Season 4 on Kickstarter, including Joel Neville Anderson, Daniel Levin Becker, Paige Calvert, Commander Manvark, Jonathan Crow, John Cunningham, David Dawes, James DeVito, Tim Dobbs, Paul Doyle, Jake Elliott, Kevin Emmett, Lawrence English, Jonathan Filbert, Andrew Philippone Jr., Michael Fransky, John French, Themistocles Eucrucius, Will Graham, Umberto Grant, Samuel Hansen, David Hayes, Jeff Hillenbrand, Mark Hines, Andrew Johnstone, Tadeusz Andrzej Kodlubowski, Peter Kavanagh, Ted Kane, Andy Cooney, Evan Landman, Alfred Lee, James Maloney, Sean McDonald, Alberto Bruzos Moro, Jason Miller, Rob Montz, Daniel Murphy, Richard Nash, Aidan Nullman, Patrick O'Flaherty, Danny Olson, Michael O'Regan, Ian Blosker, Christopher Porter, MJ Pritchett, Piers Rippey, Rob Schultz, Todd Shimoda, Cam Smith, Deborah Smith, Adam Sutherland, Maureen Kincaid Speller, Anna Traher, Thomas Unterberger, Matt Warren, Nick Weigelt, Dion Wolf, Cynthia Yang, and Wayne Wright.